Hi, Lisa. How are you today?
Oh my goodness, Michelle, I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here with you.
I am so excited that you're back on the show. And every time I see you, it just makes me want to smile because you have those beautiful starry eyes, like they're welcoming, And I always appreciate it because I feel like it's just like a friendly face. And I don't see enough of you. We used to see each other at workouts all the time.
I'd see you at workouts and I would see you at school pickups. And yes, but life has changed, has it not?
Life has changed and it just keeps moving faster, as we know. So, for all our listeners out there, I wanted to invite Lisa Breckenridge back on the show, who has a blog. And I guess I'd call her an influencer, but she's so much more. She is an award winning journalist. And, what I love about Lisa is she's a yes person, but she says yes with boundaries, actually. She's really good at making people feel seen and heard. And that's probably her gift as a journalist. But why did I want to ask her to come on is what I've learned is that people like to hear more information about me. So once a month, I invite somebody who I've had on the podcast to come and interview me. And what better way, again, just like Nina B. Clark, who came on, to have another journalist interview little old me.
I think it's so important because I think that you have to always reintroduce yourself to people because as your podcast continues to grow, as your Instagram grows, as your brand grows, there are going to be people who don't know all the specifics. So I love that you asked me on because you're asking me to do what I have done for a living, which is ask questions. When you had me on, it's always uncomfortable for me to have those tables turned and to be the one being interviewed. So I feel much more comfortable in this role. So
On the other side, well,
yes.
it's funny to me because I feel like so much of podcasting is, for me at least, is more of a conversation, an authentic conversation and connection. We never have that problem. So it's awesome. It's win-win. So anyways, what I wanted to do was, kind of turn the reins over to you and first start by you reintroducing you and telling people about your brand, and then you can grill me.
I'll launch into you. Yes. Okay. Well, my name is Lisa Breckenridge, and I was a journalist and still am a journalist. I have been my entire life. So we're going as an adult, 33, 34, 35 plus years now. For most of that time, I was on TV every single day, several hours a day, delivering live news to people, sometimes the fun of life and sometimes the worst of life, and far too often the worst of life. And so when I left daily news about 4 years ago, I decided I wanted to turn the focus more onto just the happy parts of life. And that's why I decided to call my website Happily Lisa, where we focus on just that. So, and then specifically for women too, I think women of a certain age sometimes don't always get heard in the same way. And as a woman who had been in media, and once you hit 50 or so, you're no longer as viable. And I've heard
relevant.
I know, put out to pasture. And so I really wanted to create a forum. So much of what I do is about aging gracefully and wellness and highlighting women who are owning businesses or reinventing themselves. So that's what I do on my website, on my Instagram, the fashion I highlight. I try and focus on fashion for women, beauty for women, that type of thing, as well as trips and of course, just my family recipes.
Yeah, I love it.
It's really been a lot of fun. And I still do work for NBC once a week. I go and I'll do a lifestyle story. So again,
What is that called? The lifestyle one that you do?
It's called California Live. So it focuses on all things California. So this week I worked out with a trainer, a celebrity trainer. And then I think this weekend I'm going to go interview the Foster sisters,
interesting.
the daughters who have the clothing line Favorite Daughter. So it's fun. And I really appreciate that. I think there's been enough bad news. I mean, I'm probably the only person, that's actually had to witness an execution, so that was
so true.
From my past life. And now we get to focus on this happy. So that's
and I think it's nice when you talk about the stage we're at in our life, it's so nice that it is positive. Everything that you want to do is you have a choice now. and you want to focus on positive messages. And I will say, and I want to just kind of really highlight and emphasize this, I love that Lisa really does focus on our age demographic, because it is underserved. And frankly, we're the ones with the pocketbook. So
it never quite makes sense that you don't see more of us actually on TV, but that's why I like Instagram and, the podcasts and all the things like that, where we do still have a voice, and that voice is being heard by advertisers left and right. So the brands are still, they're refocusing, they're just doing it in a different way, which I love. But enough about me. Now I want to share with
all integrated, by the way,
about you
and me.
Okay, so Michelle Wolf, I first met
Michelle Valenzuela Wolf.
Valenzuela.
Michelle Wolf is the comedian, and I could be her, but I mean, I'm not.
No. We first met at school when our kids were growing up, and then, would see each other on and off. What I didn't know at the time, because most of the time, if you're working out, you're in sweats and no makeup, or you're drop off line, you don't realize that you're standing next to a transformational coach who is in the top 1% of the country. So I was just fascinated when I started learning more about what you did in your, is it real life or the other part of your life?
All parts of life.
Yes. So first of all, tell me a little bit about that. What exactly is a transformational coach?
Well, a transformational coach it's actually quite simple. They transform and create positive change in people's lives. I'm there to help you, champion you to get to your goals, essentially. And it's action forward. Everything that we do is very, of course, I'm going to sit with you in the present moment, and I'll hold you in the space that you need to be and process. But when it's time for us to take action, I'm there to help propel you forward. So that's essentially, and I think, to be honest with you, given my corporate background, I think it was a natural fit. And I've always been a love of people. Like, for me, people's life stories are so important, and meeting them where they're at, but then taking them to the higher level, what their purpose might be.
So I want to get to what you did corporately, but is that the same thing, though, a transformational coach as a life coach? Or is it just a different way of saying it now, the 2020 version type thing?
I think the coaching industry, I'm going to be completely clear and transparent here, because that's who I am, is a very fragmented industry, right? And, if you look at its inception, like, I remember when I became a coach 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, that I remember my coach saying to me, have you ever thought about coaching? And I was like, what is a coach? She was a coach, but she was also a psychotherapist. I mean, she did a lot of different things. And I was like, I don't understand, what's a coach? Like an athletic coach? I don't want to be an athletic coach, and, but I'm an athlete, but anyways, what I would say to you is, yes, it is a life coach. However, what I would be clear to say is most transformational coaches are certified. And the certification process is a necessary step, in my opinion, to working with a coach. Because you're going to find the people that have been trained in modalities and ways to listen on a deeper level, to help you take action in a way, to help you process through things, different things like that. So yes, it is a life coach, but it's, I would say it's, the guarantee is really to try to create change, although that's what a life coach is supposed to do.
Got it. Now, do you still, because you started out in the corporate world, working with some of the biggest companies, tell me, is that still going on, or this was a transition that you made to be focused more on really women?
Yeah, that's a great question. So 17 years ago, I left the corporate world. The corporate world has definitely followed my trajectory into the coaching arena. So I've done executive coaching at some of the largest companies, whether that be Mattel or Warner Brothers or wherever, right? Sugarfina. But in addition to that, I do marketing consulting still for companies, mostly health and beauty companies. So what happens a lot of times is some of the things that I'm doing on a coaching front, because of the fact that I have a marketing background, people will then say, like, well, are you available to also take this part of my project that I'm trying to work on and bring forward into the marketing part of it? So sometimes it becomes, that's actually a point of differentiation for me as a coach, is that because I have my business background and my marketing background, and frankly, sales as well, that I can actually integrate both things. And it's a point of differentiation, and people really value it, along with the fact that also my difference in coaching is that I'm certified in yoga, I'm certified in Reiki, I'm certified in breath work. So I tend to use a lot of different modalities to bring in. But why did I leave the corporate world? Similar to you, was I actually had a violent allergic reaction to stress. And yours was a different scenario. However, my case was I was looking and seeking to have balance in my life. And I knew that I could not, I'm the type of person that I'm all in. And I knew that I could not manage to balance both. And so I actually, the other day I had this conversation with a client, and she said, I'm going to call this blog post, I'll Go First. And I said, wow, that's really powerful. And it really resonated with me because I was like the first of all my peers to leave the corporate world and choose that, okay, I think I might want to have a family, and I don't think I want to be in this environment. And what resonated one day really for me was there was a woman coming down the elevator, and it was 9:00 at night, and she was a senior executive, and chitty chatty, right? And she said, I said, oh, like, how's your day? And she's like, well, today's my son's 9th birthday. And I looked at my watch, and it was 9:30 at night. And I said, oh, wow, are you going to go home and celebrate with him right now? And of course, I'm trying not to judge, but I'm actually thinking, wow, I don't know if I want that, And she said, oh, no, we'll celebrate him on the weekend. And I thought, those are the really hard choices that both you and I are very acutely aware that you do need to make. Are you going to be in that meeting with the CEO, or are you going to choose to go home and put your kid to bed? Right? They're hard decisions. And I chose for me that I wanted balance, or I wanted to seek balance. And that's where the journey of, I actually literally, when I left Mattel, it was Mattel at the time, I had talked to the president, and he offered me a position to start a marketing training program because it was sink or swim. And I took the position, and then I actually knew the day that I was leaving that I was never coming back, because it was a little journey, as you know.
I think that you were on the forefront of this whole phrase of seeking balance. Like now you hear it all the time, like, yes, get more balance in your life. But that's something 17 years ago you actively thought about and then created for yourself. So you left that, and then you really decided to focus on women, and you created EmpowHer LA, which is now EmpowHer Purpose, correct?
Yes. Totally.
So explain what that is, because I love this community that you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so grateful that you're a part of the community. When I left the corporate world, I started at USC and UCLA's business school doing coaching and leadership training for their MBAs that were actually, there was executive MBA, all the different constituents of MBAs. Okay. And so it was a great foray into this segment, because there was 4 things. I remember talking to my coach at the time, and she was like, I don't think you should take that job. They're going to take more from you than you get back. And I said, all right, I think you're probably right. However, here are 4 reasons why I want to do it. I want to test my skill set, because I never talked to HR or leadership training unless we were in a workshop or I was getting my bonus. And so I was like, oh no, they're coming, a reorg. And so I wanted to test my skill set. I wanted to work at a credible institution, and I wanted to open my network in areas that I didn't have contacts in. So if I did want to return back into marketing, I was very clear. So like, it looks as if I just got into beauty a few years ago, but in fact, I was opening my network in beauty at L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, Kiehl's, like very large companies 17 years ago when I made the transition, because I was like, if I want to get back into marketing, I may choose to work in beauty. So essentially I worked at these business schools, I tested my skill set, and they paid for my coaching certification. So that was part of my transition, because you could get a free degree. And from there, I basically started doing executive coaching, and I started my first coaching practice called Targeted Transitions. And really it was all about making effective career transitions. And it was more career coaching and executive coaching. And one of the things when I left the corporate world, I was very clear that I wanted to coach future leaders, because I felt that most leaders never learned to be leaders. They fell into that position. And so in doing executive coaching, I realized that we're actually all alike and not that dissimilar. The fears that somebody at the top has, maybe they have higher risk, but are the same fears that the middle management has, or even the assistant, or even you or I as entrepreneurs, right? It's just a different set of things that they might be dealing with. But I realized, wow, they have just as many issues and obstacles as we do, if not more. And I quickly realized that I saw a need for women to have a voice, and for women to be heard and acknowledged, and for women to take a seat at the table. And so many women, I know probably you and I are very strong personalities in general. We manifest it differently, but I was never the person in corporate America that had trouble raising my hand, or that if there wasn't a seat for me at the table, I would make a seat, But many women don't have that opportunity, or don't frankly have that skill set or that personality. So I quickly became aware of it. And funny enough, going into the sort of the wellness component of me, I used to do a annual cookie baking party, and I am a connector. So I would bring people from all different walks, like that weren't connected to each other, but we literally would end up drinking more than we would actually baking cookies. But we did this annual cookie baking party, and a friend of mine who's a therapist said, let's break out the tarot card. And so we broke out the tarot, and we end up starting to do tarot with one another. And I'm coaching people, and she's doing something else. Okay. She's kind of like reading the cards. And so from that incident and that event, that's where my first women's group came to be. So that was like over 12 years ago, that these women that were in the room, because all this stuff started bouncing off the walls that most of these women who frankly had never had therapy could not process. And I became very concerned. So I called my friend who's a therapist who was doing the cards, and I said to her, oh my gosh, I can't sleep. I feel like I need to start a women's group. And I feel like these women need to process through the things that were coming through in that session. And so that's where the first women's group came. And from the installation of working with executives and all that, basically was like, okay, so for literally like 8 years, I tested a bunch of stuff on these women. They became like
your guinea pigs.
Yeah, they were my guinea pigs, and they were my incubator. And Lisa, I have to tell you, for years, people would say to me, can I be a part of that group that you do every month? And I'd be like, I'm so sorry, but we do such deep work that to bring you into the group now it's not okay, because we do these things called lifetimes, where we take people from the moment that you're born and what your upbringing was to present day. And inevitably there's crying, and you're not allowed to interrupt the person.
Yeah, very personal stuff
very deep. Yeah. So anyways, that's basically, so then from having this incubator, my mom got sick, as you know, and I knew that if I didn't take the concept forward to a larger audience, that I would be playing small. And I decided to launch. I just decided, all right, I'm going to do it. And that's where EmpowHer started. And EmpowHer is an integrated business and wellness community of women who support each other to pursue their goals and their dreams and to launch.
And I love it because it's all very purposeful. It wasn't by accident, and yet it was by happenstance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you had always laid the groundwork of wanting to set boundaries for yourself, for your family, for growing a business, for really focusing on women. So in your group that you do, and in your community, like, is that a membership? Do people can join now at this point?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that. So I still have the original group, and the at the time when we launched 5 years ago, almost now, we were running 5 groups, 2 workshops a month, doing corporate workshops, etc. At the end of 2019, before COVID, I wrapped up the groups. I still have that incubator of those 50 women, right? Plus the larger umbrella. We have a membership community, right? So in 2020, at the end of 2020, I had actually put the membership on hold, was still doing work with the bigger, larger group of membership and the groups. But I wanted to launch the podcast. There was a lot of things that I really wanted to get systematically in place, whether that be blog posts, my feed for Instagram. As you know, they're all different jobs within your company.
They're all full-time jobs.
They're all full-time jobs. Exactly. And so speaking of balance, that's the reason why I decided I'm going to work with this population, and we have a network and we have a community, right? So now in February 16th, we're reopening the membership. I'm super excited because we have even greater mass and greater reach, because with the podcast, we have all these additional experts that will be sharing on weekly calls. So I'll come on once a month to do a coaching call with people, and you have access to a top 1% transformational coach. And then once a month, we'll do expert calls. And then you also have access to our events at discounted rates. And then a once a year networking event, which if you live in Los Angeles would be in person, of course.
So is this something for women who are looking to take an idea and launch it into a business? Or is it just for a woman who is trying to just get more balance in her life at home? Like, who is your
target market? Yeah. Our target market is female entrepreneurs, to be honest. And that doesn't mean, you have to have an established business. You can have an inkling of idea and you want to bring it forward. You could just want to be an investor of a company. You could actually be selling a beauty counter, say, for example, but you want to grow your business. So, I would say what we do look for are people that are fun is number one, because I'm fun, and fun, people that are motivated, but people that are wanting to step into something and create. And so,
you do that through workshops, right? Which you have finally being able to do again, right?
Thank God, right? Yes, definitely. Yeah. So I do workshops anywhere between on confidence to visioning to values workshops. So many people that I interview on my podcast are super unclear on what values are. And we do a whole workshop on that. I have a game that I've done. I do a branding workshop. I do a social media workshop called Cougars on Computers, because just like Lisa, I primarily target women more 35 plus. I have so many different types of workshops that I do. I don't know where to start. Oh, yes, actually, I have the 2 workshops that I'm doing in February. Thank you so much for reminding me. One is called Get Grounded, which is basically all about, listen, you and I were talking before we got on the call. January has not been the start that we all wanted for 2022 on so many levels. And I think we're all, even Lisa and I, who are overly optimistic people, but in addition, people who really reach for our goals are having stumbling blocks. And so we wanted to provide this workshop that I did for 9 months, and people asked that I bring it back in conjunction with Christine Gardner, who is a goals coach that I've done a lot of work with. And so we're doing Get Grounded, which is an hour workshop on February 1st. And then there's a subsequent workshop called Goal Getting, because one of the things I've been really realizing with working with many of my individual coaching clients is people can claim a goal, but they don't know how to back into the goal. And it's the small steps that lead to the big gains, but people have trouble identifying the small steps. Mm-hmm. So that's what that workshop is about.
And then you also, do you have to be a member to be able to go to I know you're going to have a retreat before Mother's Day of these beautiful women up near the Santa Barbara area, right?
Yes. So the benefit of being a part of the membership is that you receive discounts to the workshops. So it's a 20% discount to the workshops. However, The retreat, there's not a discount for that, but we do prefer that you would be a member to be part of the retreat. Most of what I would say is, so I've done a lot of work since COVID started with a lot of different female groups, female entities, whether that be Boss Talks, I'm friends with Hillary Gadsby, whether it be Bra Network, there's so many. I'm friends with Carrie. What I would say is I'm high touch. So the difference is I love large groups and I love to connect with people, but I generally keep it to under 50 people. And right now with COVID, we have to be super selective. It's more like 15 to 20. And so to me, why it's high touch is going back to the integration between business and wellness. When you're doing deep wellness work, it is very high touch and you have to keep people safe and they need to trust you. And that's one of the things that I build trust really easily. And I need to make sure that I'm able to have high touch to each individual that is attending the retreat. So yes, we would prefer.
Got it. And you touched on obviously COVID and the fact that we thought 2022 was going to be a bit different, the year that everything got back to normal. But for so many people, it's been a rough start and it's been hard to fall back into or reclaim what you thought was going to be your goal.
Yes. Yeah. It's been like I said, you and we talked about this before we got on the call. It's not just us, it's everybody. And so that's when we have an epidemic. So we know that mental health has always been a crisis in recent years with stress. But now I think we're taking it to this next level where I think, we defined it by things in terms of, deep COVID, like pivoting and, new normal and all of those things. But, I think what we do know is that, viruses are not going away. This situation is not going away. And the more that we're able to accept where we're at and find ways to allow ourselves to feel safe and to step into connection is still super important. We know that it's one of the number one ways women feel safe and successful and happy. And so we want to provide incubators for you so that you can still have those interpersonal connections that we used to have, right? So how do we help you overcome some of the challenges of feeling lonely or feeling like, you're working in a vacuum by yourself? I mean, so many women are working at home right now, and men for that matter. My husband's still working from home. But it's a very challenging time for us. And I think the more that we can share resources with one another in a way that makes us feel like we're still moving forward toward our goals, but we have to think differently. It's a mindset.
Because I think for all of us during, like what you said, deep COVID is like, okay, well, you knew you weren't going to leave your house and you knew you were going to wipe down your groceries. Exactly. If you went to the grocery store and got them and you were in gloves and like everything that it was then. And now we're back into a period where it's still respecting people's boundaries because not everyone feels safe. Whereas some people might feel okay to go out and do things and be working. There are still so many restrictions. And I think that's the part that is confusing for people's minds.
Yeah, I agree with you because especially if you have a fixed mindset in general, right? Mm-hmm. If you're one who has trouble making transitions and is rather inflexible, and we all have our thing, right? We all like to control, right? And, some things that I've been talking about, like I picked words for the year, right? So, my larger umbrella word is impact, right? But I'm still putting it within an incubator. Like my subset words are flow, flexibility, and surrender. Why is that? I have to surrender to the process. I can't control what's going to happen. I mean, as much as, I love to travel. Well, I mean, we can't really plan in the same way that we used to plan. And at the same time, I go, wow, isn't it great that we're able to be more present with people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That when you're actually with somebody, you're more present.
I think so.
Right?
Think so. Okay, so you kind of talked about it maybe a little bit because you mentioned your words, but I always have a mantra for myself. I have for a very long time. Do you have a mantra that you go by every day? Or is it?
No, I love that. I love that question. I don't have a mantra I go by every day, but what I do have, and I'm going to recreate it for myself and my brand. I actually have a book that I've been using, honestly, since I was in the corporate world. It's called A Guide to the Advanced Soul. And I actually give it as a component, as a gift for when you're in my women's groups or when you actually join the membership, right? And essentially, it's by Susan Hayward. And it's a very simple tool. So you hold a thought. She calls it a problem. I actually call it a thought. You hold a problem in your head is the way she phrases it. And then you open to any page. But what really, truly it is, it's tapping into your subconscious. And so, and I'm always floored by how well it works, because I'm like, wow, well, that's really telling. That's exact. And I just did this with the client. The first time I'm meeting with her is this discovery session. And we talked about all this stuff. And I said, all right, I'm going to mail this to you, but I'm just going to do this just so that we could see. She's somebody who actually was transitioning out of like a very heavy religion. Okay. And when we opened the book, it turned to a scripture quote. So I very rarely will ever pull a scripture quote from here. They're in there, but I very rarely do. I was like, isn't that fascinating? So this is one way that I create like sort of an intention for the day or a daily ritual. I do that every morning. The second thing that I do is I pick a word every morning before I leave the bed. So I start and I end my day with gratitude, but I pick a word and it comes from like my subconscious. So I literally I wake up, I may not get out of the bed and I'm like, what's coming to you today? Right. I meditate every day. So these are all things I do before I go to my workout. So that's why when people see on my Instagram feed that I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's why.
Very productive.
As you know, being a mom, we have no space to ourselves.
No, I like when it's dark and no one's up. I mean, most of my life as a parent was spent that way, getting up at 2:30 to do the morning news. So I liked those dark, quiet.
Yeah.
I think that's a big insight though, quickly into your mindset when you said you thought of it as a thought versus a problem.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And I think it's those little tweaks that we give to how we classify something, whether it's a problem or a thought. And I think that's big insight into your success and your mindset.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very much a growth mindset person.
You have to be.
Not a Pollyanna though.
No.
Yeah.
No, not a Sally Sunshine. That's what I used to get called in college. Okay, what's the one thing that you have daughters? I have a daughter and a son. Yeah. What's the one thing that you instill in your daughters?
I want them to have a voice. And so it's interesting, as you know, we both have teenagers. So as much as you want them to have a voice, sometimes you want to shut their voice down. No, I'm just kidding. What I would say is the most important thing, I used to do confidence workshops for girls, as you know, and I want my children to be confident. I remember going back to you and I going to the same grammar school for our children. And in the interview, the woman asked me, what do you want for your children 20 years from now? Are you concerned about where they go to college? And I said, no. I said, for me, I want to raise strong, well-adjusted, respectful, kind children to all people, no matter your race, no matter your religion, and that is really where I come from with parenting and how I come from in building community. Anybody, yeah, I mean, you know me, whoever, I don't have a type. There's so many different kinds of people that I surround myself with. It's really about a deep inherent connection with somebody. And I want that for my girls,
Beautiful. Okay, I want to kind of wrap up with some lightning round questions because we've gotten a lot of insight into how your mind works, and I think that bleeds into obviously your personal life, but we've talked a lot about your professional life. So this is just a quick, so people can get to know just your likes and dislikes and all of that, the things you love. So first of all, favorite restaurant in LA that's a splurge.
Ooh, oh, wow. I like so many restaurants. Okay, I'm going to say this with a qualifier. I love Nobu, but this is going to sound really spoiled. I love Nobu when you go to a private event. That's like, because sometimes you don't get a great table. So, you know,
Yeah.
I love sushi. Yes.
Good. What is your favorite LA restaurant that's a dive?
Shay J.
I've never been.
Oh my God, we need to go together. It's so good. It's so good.
I know it's an institution, but I have never been.
Oh my God, because I used to work, I used to be at Turner Broadcasting System, and I literally used to go to the American Film Market. So we used to have a lot of our dinners there and stuff. So
okay, well, someday.
I just went there with my husband. We made fancy dinner reservations for our anniversary. And then in the end, I was like, you know what? Let's go to Shay J.
See? Sometimes it's just the best, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, last book that you read?
Atlas of the Heart.
Okay.
Brene Brown. Brene Brown.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's her new book.
I'm writing that down. Okay.
Read it.
And last movie that you saw?
Spider-Man.
Yeah. So good, right?
Now I have kids, but actually it's amazing. It's really good.
Me too. Current show that you're binging?
You know, it's funny. The Happy Place. The Good Place. Sorry.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
so me. That's so typical me. Like, I'm like, I got the name wrong. The Good Place. So I watched it like a little bit.
Dancing, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so I watched a little bit of it, and then I kind of was like, it's kind of dumb. But then now I'm like totally into it. And I think it's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My daughter.
And I'm actually really into the morning show too.
I was obsessed with the morning show, although it had way
I'm sure. Yeah. I was thinking about you during, as I was watching it. Yeah. And by the way, good for Jennifer Aniston. It's an amazing role for her.
For all of them, really. I really love what they did for women in that. Okay. Exercise of choice, because I know you're very, very fitness oriented. So
I know you do. That's a really hard one because I love exercise. I love to be outside, but I feel like with hiking, you only get one part. So I used to be a big runner. I ran marathons, half marathons. I used to have a running group called the Witty Group. It's just, again, it gives you like a little insight into my mind, because my first women's group was called Witty. Like, so when you look at my personal Instagram, it's Witty Wolf. It stood for Women in Transition. Yeah, it stood for Women in Transition International.
Never knew that before. See, I'm learning all types of new things. Okay. Guilty pleasure.
Ice cream.
What kind? What flavor?
I love Rocky Road and pralines and cream.
Okay.
Although it gives me a stomach ache now, but I do like it.
Things to age and all of that, right? Go-to snack, or is it the ice cream?
No, go-to snack. I don't really eat ice cream very often, but I do love it. Go-to snack. This is random, but like a tortilla with jelly and butter. That's how you know I'm Mexican.
Yes. That is something I've not heard of before.
Yeah, it's very random. I know.
Okay, got it. Best part of quarantine for you?
Spending time with my girls, my high school girls, because that would not have happened.
Right? Yeah. There was something magical about it. As tough as it was still so much magic in all of it.
Yeah. And probably, like, honestly, this is sad to say. I mean, you and I live in the Mecca of LA. Getting to know my neighbors better. Like, our neighbors across the street are like really close friends, and their girls are the same age. But the other neighbors, because our houses aren't necessarily close together, but like we used to do little parties in people's driveways.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was sweet.
I like that. And what are you looking forward to most for 2022?
My TEDx talk.
And is that scheduled?
It is not scheduled yet, but it will be soon. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I really feel that I'm ready. Like, there's been years where the coach that I'm working with on it, he's a friend of mine, but he's been talking to me for years. He's like, you really need to do a TEDx talk. He's like, look, listen, you can't buy charisma. He's like, you got it. Like, and I was like, you just want my money. Like, but now I'm like, I see what he's saying. Like, why didn't I want to do it sooner? So that's what I would say.
That is so exciting.
I'm very excited. It's on actually, it's kind of an offshoot of the podcast. So it's on opportunities and obstacles, but related to relevance. So your whole point about ageism definitely comes up in the talk. So I feel that relevance happens throughout all generations and ages, and we need one another. We need to support one another in that way. Like the younger generation needs to respect the older generation needs to respect the younger generation as far as gifts bringing forward,
We're all woven together. I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me find out more about you. And I know that your audience got to find out a lot more about you. And I think that's fantastic. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. And always, thank you so much for just being a bright light in my life. It's been an honor.
That means so much to me, Lisa. And I'm just, I'm really grateful that our friendship continues to grow and that we support each other in ways that we're not even aware of. And you know what? Thank you so much again for being here and holding the space for me.
Always.
Okay. I love you. Thank you, sis.